Hi, my name is Judith. I am one half of the Nutty Nitty Sisters. Together with my sister Julie, we create videos sharing our love of all things fibery and the fiber arts. If this is your first time joining, welcome. Thank you for clicking on the video, and we hope you enjoy what you see. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back time and time again. We truly appreciate it. If you have not yet subscribed, please consider clicking the subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything, and we would love for you to join our little fiber community here on YouTube. If you do enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and share. It is very much appreciated and helps us share our love of the fiber arts. This video is the 6th video in a series of videos that I'm doing about a breed study from Maine Fiber Workshop. I purchase a monthly bundle of fiber and share the research that Kendra provides, as well as any research that I have completed. We will talk about the breed, we'll talk about the fiber, a little bit of the history, the spinning method that I'm using, and I will share the finished yarn with you. The bundle is a monthly subscription that is provided by Maine Fiber Workshop in 4-ounce braids. There are 2 options, a 1 braid and a 2 braid option. I purchased the 2 braid option because I need all the fiber. If you would like to participate in the breed study, you can start and stop at any time by going to Maine Fiber Workshop and look for the fiber or the breed study link. I will include the website in the description box below. There's no affiliation. Just sharing it because we love the fiber. I will also include a link here of my previous breed study videos. This breed study is a breed called Punta Arenas. I could not find a lot of information about this, and Kendra mentioned in her newsletter for this breed that she was unable to find a lot of information as well. It is a breed originating from Chile. It is typically white, although there's variations that can occur. The staple length is between 3 to 6 inches. The micron count is 25 to 31 is the most common, but again, that can vary as well. The name comes from a port in Chile. Typically, it's a Corriedale sheep that may have been crossed. A geographic designation rather than a true breed, so the quality can vary. So that's what I found most prevalent in my research as well, is it's really not a breed, but more a designation of the port in Chile, that a lot of the wool from the Patagonian region actually is exported from. So a lot of wool that comes out of that region is just called Punta Arenas or PA. So I did a little bit of research on the region and the port rather than the sheep, because there's really not a specific breed of sheep to do research on. So Punta Arenas is also, and I'm probably mispronouncing these, but Punta Arenoso, which means sandy point, is kind of the native tongue of that region. And it means sandy point, which if you think about the point of the end of Chile, it's the sandy point of the entire continent. So in this region, sheep farming boomed in the 1880s to 1900s. The largest sheep company at one point took up 10,000 square kilometers and was based there. The owner of that sheep company also lived right there in that city. So it was kind of the central region for all sheep farming. They have their own time zone. There's summer all year time zone. It's a UTC -3. So they don't like shift their clocks back and forth like we do. The first successful sheep farm occurred in 1877 by a man named Henry Reynard. He started his farm with about 300 sheep. By the end of World War I, oil kind of crept into the region and the industry started to die off. There was a huge boom. It caused a lot of shift in the economy of the region. It caused a lot of civil strife within the region. So it was very interesting to learn about how simply importing sheep and making a new industry in a region can have such an effect on a region. In the 1950s, there was an ecological study that found that the steppe ecosystem was vastly altered by the wool industry and the sheep farming that happened in that region. Because of the erosion that happened just from the sheep. There was no like forestation or anything that happened in that region because it was a very grassy and sandy land. The erosion that happened from the sheep and from the excrement of the sheep, it caused an algae bloom in the area that really kind of devastated the ecosystem for a while. So it was very interesting to read how something as simple as bringing farm animals in on a mass scale can have such an impact on the environment. So that was my research that I found on the region versus the sheep. Predominantly the sheep that come out of that region are Corriedale. I found two resources. Wildwoolfarm.com sells their Punta Arenas with the description that the sheep come from the southern Patagonia, Argentina. They're mainly Scottish Corriedale, although some merinos have been brought in from Australia. And then another resource is romneywools.ca, and they advertise their Punta Arenas wool top, stating that it's a bright wool from the Patagonia region in Chile. The breed is not specific, but Romney, Marsh, and Corriedale are common in that region. So that's what I found on the internet. I then took to all of my resource books and I found a couple of different things. Because I couldn't go specifically to a Punta Arenas breed, I had to kind of rely on Corriedale. The information they had on Corriedale mentions Punta Arenas, so that's where I went with my research here. So I actually went to the Corriedale section of my field guide to fleece. It indicated that Corriedales were first imported by the USDA to Laramie, Wyoming research station in 1914. So that's how they first came to the United States. And again, they mentioned that many of the sheep raised in the Falkland Islands and South America are Corriedales or Corriedale crosses, and they're commonly shipped through the port of Punta Arenas and called Punta or PA. So that's what I found in that resource. And again, in the Fleece and Fiber source book, some of the information I found there was, again, that the wool shipped from Chile is named after the port. And they also gave a little bit of spinning information in this book. And one of the biggest takeaways that I found in the research in this book is to spin a finer strand than you think you want, because washing will cause the yarn to bloom. That's very important because if you've seen my past breed studies, I got surprised on a couple of fibers that way. So we'll make sure that we spin a little thinner, so when it blooms, I'm hopefully going to get what I'm looking for. And then I went to Yarn-A-Texture. And in Yarn-A-Texture, I found not a lot of information specifically about Punta Arenas, but I did go to the Corriedale section, and just the basic overview of medium wools indicated that this type of wool, this class of wool, it balances durability and elasticity. They have excellent stiff definition when drafted, either worsted or woolen. So that was interesting. And then finally, my last resource is the Spinner's Book of Fleece. And I did find some good information here. There's a section, if you have this book, it's on page 85. There's a section on elastic sock wool from fine wools. And I found that little mini article so interesting on how one of her favorite methods to get a good elastic yarn is to spin the singles with a low to average twist, and then spin the plies with a little higher twist to get a nice, like a 40 to 45 degree angle, to get a nice bouncy yarn. So not a balanced yarn, but taking advantage of the crimp in this type of wool to get a nice stretchy and elastic yarn. And we talked about this with Kendra in one of our recent Zoom spin-ins or spin-alongs. So I find that very interesting, and I think I'm going to incorporate that in the way that I do this fiber. Some additional information in this book was about Corriedale is that many processed fibers or yarns available to spinners, including Falkland and Punta, are made up of a large amount of Corriedale wool, even though they're not labeled that way. So I think we're really kind of working with a Corriedale or a Corriedale cross here. And I will go into more detail on Corriedale when we actually do Corriedale at a later time in the breed study. So in the Spinner's Book of Fleece, she did two different samples. One that was three different samples. She did a 2-ply worsted spun, and then she did two different 3-ply woolen spuns. And the 2-ply worsted spun was really great for a lace or open knit work. And then the woolen spun, she found was best for stitch definition and a more dense but airy, warm wool. So what I decided to do is I'm going to do both. I think I'm going to do one that I am going to spin from the fold, although I'm not very good at it. This is good practice. So I'm going to do my woolen spun skein as a spin from the fold and get a nice lofty, airy yarn. And then I'm going to do the other one, worsted spun, and just spin it straight from the top. And that one I'm going to do 2-ply, probably a little bit thinner than the woolen spun. The woolen spun, I do think I am going to do a 3-ply, probably chain plied. So that yarn is going to be interesting. So that's the plan. 2 different skeins of yarn this time, a thin worsted 2-ply, and then a little bit thicker 3-ply woolen, nice spun from the fold lofty yarn. So that's the plan. I will see you on the other side of the bobbin. I have finished spinning my samples, and I thought I would share those with you because it has changed what I'm planning to do. So this is the first sample. This is a 2-ply in a worsted prep. So I spun this right from the top, and I spun the singles on the 3 power setting on the eel wheel, and then I spun the plies on a 4. And usually when I ply on the eel wheel, I will ply for a 5 count. Usually it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I roll it on the bobbin. So this one I actually plied for a 7 count so that I would get a little bit tighter spin. I'll try to zoom in on the overhead video to kind of give you an idea and show you the ply, how tightly this is plied. Now this is lightly blocked. The singles, the yarn was so energetic and so unbalanced. I had to give it a little light blocking just so that it would lay flat on the table. But it is not fully blocked. This is the same yarn fully blocked. What a difference. As far as the wraps per inch, I don't think I gain a whole lot, but overall wrap per wrap, it does end up being larger. So if we look at the wraps per inch difference on these, this one sits quite nicely in the 30 wraps per inch. Yeah, closer to 20. It's a little small for the 20 wraps per inch, but right around there, but probably about 22 wraps per inch. And then this one is definitely not 20. This one is more in the 14 to 16 range. You've got some bits obviously that are a little bit fatter, but I would call that on average about a 16. And then my final, this one is a woolen prep spun from the fold, and then 3-ply chain plied into a 3-ply yarn. And obviously that's going to be quite a bit plumper. This is more on the the worsted to Aran side. Now, what I thought was really interesting was the bounce on these. This one, you can see it's got quite a bit of give, little bounce there. These are quite bouncy. I definitely like this bounce. And that's quite a difference with the singles being lightly twisted and the plies being a little looser twisted. It's you can feel the elasticity in this yarn so much. I love this yarn, but I don't care for the process of doing this yarn. So I am going to do one of my 2-ounce braids in this format. The second one I do, because this is woolen prepped, and I do want to see the difference in the worsted prep. Sorry. This one is worsted prep, and I want to see the difference between the worsted prep and the woolen prep. So what I'm going to do for my 3-ply yarn is I am going to weigh it out into 3 separate amounts, and then I am going to put it on the blending board and make some rollags out of it so that I get that woolen prep without having to do a from the fold spin. And then I will do a traditional 3-ply rather than the chain ply. I should practice, but I really do want to get a nice bouncy soft, well done woolen prepped yarn. So that's my new plan. I've got some work to do.
Ba-da
The thought occurred to me as I was pulling this beautiful fiber off of my board that I may have just ruined. A beautiful braided fiber. I really hope not. I'm thinking I'm accomplishing the same thing doing this as I would if I was spinning from the fold. We'll see what happens. Hello. Well, it has been a while since I last recorded. I kind of lost my mojo a little bit with my spinning, but it is back. I've been watching some spinning videos on YouTube and I'm starting to get the urge to spin again. I did finish the Punta Arenas singles. So this is the single, and I apologize about the lighting. This is the single from the combed top. So this is right from the one of the braids. That's 4 ounces, and then the other 4 ounces I divided into 3. And if you remember, I put these on the blending board and did some roll eggs out of them to try to fluff the fiber a bit. This was not a very pleasurable spin. The roll eggs were not blended enough, so I didn't get the fluff that I wanted, but I do have 3 semi-equal bobbins. So I'm going to ply these 3 together, and then this one I'm going to chain ply, and hopefully we'll be able to compare the 2 and see how they perform. So hopefully I'll be able to get that done quickly instead of a month later for you all. See you on the other side of the bobbin. Well, I have the Punta Arenas done. I'm so excited, so glad to have this done and moving on to a new project. Not that I didn't completely enjoy this, I did. It's just I lost my mojo a bit, but it's back and I'm glad. So this is the skein that I'm most proud of out of this project. This was, and surprisingly, it is the 3-ply chain plied yarn. It came out to 12 wraps per inch, a DK weight, and it is 119.7 meters or 140.27 yards. And it was plied, spun with an S twist and plied with the Z twist, and the Z twist came out about 30 degrees, and it turned out so lovely. I love it. It's blowing out a little bit, but I think you can see the detail there. For chain plied, it came out so great. I'm not a good chain plier, but this went surprisingly well. It's fairly consistent. There are some strands that are a bit thinner and thicker in places, but overall it's a solid DK. Now, the woolen prepped, yeah. So this is the one that I put on the blending board and made rollags out of. So there were two problems with that. It was a combed top, so it was nicely aligned, and I was trying to get it to be a little bit more misaligned, but I don't like to spin from the fold. And I thought putting it on the blending board and making little rollags out of it, I could get a good mangled, tangled bedhead kind of prep. But because I put it on quite thick and then just rolled it off, it really didn't get misaligned very well. I pre-drafted the rollags. There were parts of it that were what I was looking for, but other parts that actually came out still very, very aligned. I think this would have been better done on a like a drum carder, or if I had used my hand cards, but I'm lazy and I didn't want to put that much work into it. You get what you give, right? Yeah, so I think next time, or if I could go back in time, I would go ahead and do the spin from the fold. It would have been a much more pleasurable spin, and the results would have been much more consistent, even though I'm not a great spin from the fold spinner. So here's how it turned out anyway. It is a bit inconsistent. It turned out at 9 wraps per inch, so it's a worsted weight. It is 134.7 meters, or 147.31 yards. The twist is 50% Z twist. And yeah, it's a bit inconsistent. There's some places here where you can see it's quite a bit bigger. And it just didn't turn out. It's nice and fluffy, and that aspect of it I love, but it just wasn't what I expected from the prep. So as far as the springiness goes, because if you remember at the beginning of the video, I talked about spinning the singles at a lower rate of speed than I normally do, and then plying at a high rate of speed. I usually do the opposite. I usually do my singles at a high rate and then lower it for the ply. And here is the result. This is the rollag prep. So it's got a little bit of stretch there, a little bit of give, not a lot. And then this is the chain ply. And we'll pull a strand of that. And a little more boing, but not a lot of difference between the two. It definitely has more boing than my boing. Is that a technical term? It is now. It has more bounce. There we go. Than my typical spin does. But yeah, I didn't see a whole lot of difference, and probably it's something that I'll need to practice to really get it right. But I did enjoy the Punta Arenas. I do think it is very similar to Corriedale, which I have spun before. I got 2 beautiful skeins of yarn, 2 different weights, which is fun. So I don't know what I'll do with them. I will probably find something to throw some dye on them and see what I can get out of the dye pot, because it will take dye very well, I think, if it's akin to the Corriedale. So that is the Punta Arenas. I did end up with a small bit of 2-ply because there was some left after the bobbins for the true 3-ply ply. 3-ply ply? So I have a teensy weensy little bit of 2-ply. So there they are. I love them. They're soft, they're squishy, and they're fun. So if you stuck around for this whole experiment, bless you, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.